So when a buyer enters a home, it's kind of like a job interview. Sometimes they know within seconds whether or not they want the house, or maybe they're enticed to go a little bit deeper and explore a little bit more. So one of the things that Heidi shared with me as we toured this home is she loves the way Meritage homes use the color orange to draw the eye, keep it roving, and encourage visitors to really explore every nook and cranny. So Heidi, I want you to take us on a tour of this home and just point out things that probably most of us would never even think about, but we're subtly influenced by the designer brilliance. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am super excited to have Heidi Reece from Indigo Interiors. She is an interior designer and she's going to be sharing with us her top 10 tips for staging your home to sell. We are lucky enough to be sitting here in Meritage Homes Jubilee model in Bella Vista Trails in Santan Valley, Arizona. So a big thank you to them. And we're certainly going to be referring to their brilliant work here as great examples. So Heidi, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So not to put you on the spot or anything, but what are your top 10 tips just to quickly review before we go into some examples of how to best stage a home for sale?
Thank you for asking. Well, the point of staging is to get people in the doors. And if you do not have great photographs, people are not going to want to come see the house, no matter how beautiful it is. We stage a home to direct the eye to specific parts of the home where you have really great architectural features, soaring ceilings, ample light, all the beautiful things that are going to sell a house and that are really desirable in the house. So I always tell people that staging a house is kind of like a magician. We want you to look over here and not down here. And we accomplish a lot of that by staging a home.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and I can speak as a realtor that we spend a lot of money on photographs, but we definitely want to make the house as photographable as possible so that we touch as many people and get them into the home in order to sell it.
So 10 things that you need to realize when you are going to be staging your home is one of the most important things is to keep your house really light and bright. Windows sell a house and brightness. Nobody wants a dark home. Another thing to think about is by placing color strategically throughout your home, it draws attention to specific architectural features in your home and desirable features of your home.
So color is key.
Color is always key. We don't want to have any rugs on the floor. A lot of times people will think that maybe you're trying to hide something by putting a rug down. And remember that we live differently than we stage a house. So people really want to see those beautiful floors that are coming with the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bare floors.
Very important. If you have a spot by your door that is barren or a place that has a cutout or a niche, we want to make sure that we tell people what to do with that spot. Sometimes people don't understand why a particular jut out is in a home. And so if we tell them what we did with the space, then they can envision what to do with their space as well.
Yeah, so eliminating awkward spaces.
One thing that you really need to think about is depersonalizing your home. If people can see you in the house, they can't see themselves purchasing your house. And it feels kind of like an invasion of privacy. So we want all personal photos off of the wall, and things like your sports team, any sort of religious icons need to be taken down so it appeals to all buyers who will be looking at the home. What you paint your wall with, the colors, is very, very important. We want to have light, fresh colors that don't feel dated. And we want to make sure that the colors will appeal to as many people as possible. And very importantly, match all the hard finishes in the house.
Nice. So neutralizing the space and the colors.
Okay, so now is the time to go ahead and do any sort of updates that you're wanting to do to your house, like swapping out a dated light fixture or a faucet that may be worn looking or dated as well. Any of those little updates can really go far. And Typically, buyers don't know how much things cost. And so anything that they see that they might have to do to update your home will feel significantly more expensive. I think people think a lot of updates are between $10,000 and $20,000. So take that off their plate. Don't give them a reason to not purchase your home. Okay, when you're shooting a bathroom or a kitchen, you want to have the counters very clean and really devoid of most things. We do place items in corners and in spots to draw attention to specific ovens, stovetops, really desirable features, but we want to not have all sorts of countertop appliances out because it really clutters the countertop and makes it look a lot smaller than the kitchen really is.
Good point.
Point number 9 would be that if you have cabinets that don't go the whole way to the top, it's a really good idea to make sure that you do not have anything on top of your cabinets. If people are looking at your decor, they are not looking at your house. The decor goes. Grandma's chicken collection is going with you when you leave. It is not staying with the house. They need to notice your cabinets, not your collection of chickens. Tip number 10 is if you have busy tile, a backsplash, countertop with a lot of movement or detailing in it, faux painting on the wall, wallpaper, any sort of busy textures or patterns, we want to keep the adjacent textures and patterns down to a minimum so you can really notice the really beautiful details of the home and not be like, where's Waldo with all of the extra pattern going on. And it's really distracting in the photos.
Great. Well, I'm excited to delve into this top 10 list of yours. I think one thing to keep in mind as you watch this is that while we stage a home differently than we live, a lot of Heidi's tips are really great ways to stage your home for your family. Really, part of the benefit of staging a home when you're selling it is to try to get someone to stay in your home as long as possible while they're looking at it. Because the longer a buyer stays in a home, the better the chance is that they'll buy it. There's something there that's keeping them there. It's kind of like when you go shopping, the longer you stay in a store, the higher the chances are that you're going to buy something there, right? So let's, dive into what you have to share with us, and let's go.
Sounds good.
One of the big trends in real estate right now is the big open spaces. So Heidi, I know light is important in these spaces. How can someone who's listing their home really accentuate that in a big space like this?
One of the most important things to remember is furniture placement. So when you are taking photographs of a house that you are staging for sale, you want to ensure that all of the furniture is placed strategically where you have open paths and you have nothing blocking any doors or any windows. Anything blocking a door or window will make the space look smaller.
Right. So if someone had a space like this and they had blinds in the windows, what would you suggest? Would you?
Open, light, and bright. Everything needs to be as bright as possible. So all window treatments off, everything open to let people really see the windows and the beautiful outdoor spaces as well, while also allowing as much light to come in as possible.
Nice. So just a tip from a realtor here in Arizona, if you're investing money in draperies to most strategically stage your home, just keep in mind that unless it's written out in the purchase contract, those window treatments will convey to the buyer at close of escrow. As I take a lot of my buyers around to homes, one of the first things they comment on, especially in Arizona, because often they're moving here for a reason, they want the sun, is they love the natural light in a home. So Heidi, what are some ways that people who are listing their home for sale can really make their homes look light and bright and accentuate the light that they have?
Well, one of the things that we want to do is we want to make the window look as big as possible. And you accomplish that by keeping your drapery completely off of the window frame. So you want to hang your rod as high as possible. And, if you have 20-foot ceilings, don't take it the whole way up to the ceiling. That would just look silly. But you want to keep it high off of the window frame. And you want your drapes to basically be covering wall, not window. Your eye will always kind of fill in that space and understand that the drapes are covering the window, even if they're not, and they're just covering the wall. So it's a trick of the eye to make the window look bigger. So when staging a home, we want to let as much light and as much brightness into the space as possible because it feels warm and homey.
Oh, so then Heidi, I might have someone push back and say, well, why even put draperies up if I'm selling the house? So what would you say to that? What's the importance of having draperies up in a window?
Well, that's really important because it frames the space. So, and it adds personality. And that's what you want, is you want your house to stand out amongst the other sea of houses. People are not only looking at one house when they purchase, and you want your house to make a really memorable memory point for somebody. So it can either be the house that was weird and has no window coverings, and now I have to spend $20,000 putting window coverings on, or it can be the house with the really cool drapes.
Right. Okay. Excellent point. So when a buyer enters a home, it's kind of like a job interview. Sometimes they know within seconds whether or not they want the house, or maybe they're enticed to go a little bit deeper and explore a little bit more. So one of the things that Heidi shared with me as we toured this home is she loves the way Meritage Homes use the color orange to draw the eye, keep it roving, and encourage visitors to really explore every nook and cranny. So Heidi, I want you to take us on a tour of this home and just point out things that probably most of us would never even think about, but we're subtly influenced by the designer brilliance.
Okay, so when you're selecting a color for your home and strategic placement, you put it in specific spots to keep the eye moving and to follow a specific path. So where we're at in the entry of the home right now, if you look all the way down the hall, you have orange placed here and to this wall on the right and straight ahead. And so basically one of the first things you're going to notice is how big and long and open this space feels. Nobody is asking for cramped quarters nowadays. We are taking down walls and we are doing everything to maximize the space as much as possible. And so it's kind of interesting to have the orange strategically pick up your eye and move you straight down the hallway and into the great room.
Right. Nice. I also want to interject here because this is something that I wouldn't have noticed if Heidi hadn't pointed it out. And it's the way that the tile has been installed in the home because of the placement. It carries the eye versus being installed, what would this be, horizontally?
Yeah, just
horizontally?
Horizontally.
Horizontally. I think I just invented a word.
Good job.
So it's installed vertically, so it really carries the eye to the end where that pop of orange in the art is there, and it really helps to almost ground the space.
Yeah. Actually, if you notice as well, the lines of the tile go all the way back and they intersect with the black lines that take your eye straight up to the ceiling with the orange there as well. So it basically makes your eye move all the way to the back wall and then straight up to notice how big the ceilings are and to take you to a destination.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see some more orange.
All right, there's plenty to look at. So as we walk over here and into the kitchen, you'll notice that we have a really beautiful kitchen and it's done very well. It's very sparsely decorated so you can see the miles of countertop. But they do have some cookbooks over here that have the repetition of the color. And over here in this corner, where is a perfect spot for a little coffee zone, they have another kind of orange detail and a little bit of amber going on over here that is moving with the overall color scheme in the space. If you pivot to this spot behind you, there is a drop zone and they have orange on the purse handle over here. And they just keep repeating it. And what it's doing is it's telling your eye exactly where to look. Notice me, notice me, notice me over here. So it's just little exclamation points pointing out specific areas to look at in the home. Nice. Moving over here into the great room, we keep following with the orange theme. We follow these horizontal lines that are pointing us this way. We have the chairs, the orange detailing on the pillows. There's even repeating up in this art over here, and then it ends all the way over here. And newsflash, there's more orange in the primary suite. This has some really beautiful, gentle lines and movement going on in here with the horizontal lines on the lamps that move over to the horizontal lines in orange above the bed, moves across the bed into this drape or into the lamp over here, and then the drapes, which again bring your eyes straight up towards the ceiling. The orange does repeat itself in the bathroom as well with the detailing on the artwork and the towels. I do love their placement of art over here on the bathroom wall. A lot of people would tend to put it above the toilet. And again, that's some of the difference between how we live and how we stage. But when it's on this wall over here, it draws your eye all the way back so you can see how large the water closet area is. And you would miss that if you're photographing it from some of the angles in the bathroom that you'd need to do to get where the toilet's at in relation to the bathroom itself. You'd miss half of the art. But the art here draws your eye in and shows you how big the space is.
One of the things that I love about this model is the shared space that these two bedrooms have. And a buyer may miss it, but with the use of the orange color, it really carries the eye and encourages the buyer to explore all areas in this home. So why don't you take us through this, Heidi?
Keep in mind, any sort of color decision you make should relate to all other spaces in the home, or else it feels a little detached. So again, with their use of orange, they bring it right down the hall. It's here in the communal area and the art, and then over here in the accessories. And then even if you turn this corner, here's a little cute addition that, kind of warms the space up. It's all throughout here, all the way into this really cute teen room, where they have all of these extra little pops of color.
So I know one of your tips was no rugs on the floor. So tell us why.
For the most part, that is a really good thing to do in pretty much every home. The main reason why is it's kind of a trick of the eye. So when you take the rug off of the floor, it makes the floor space look so much larger. So, when you were flying and they tell you to close the shade and to turn off the light and it's going to make it cooler, it doesn't actually make it cooler. It's a trick of the eye, right? But that's what we do with staging. We implement that on staging as well. So what we do is we go ahead and remove all the rugs, and then you see miles and miles of beautifully maintained floor space, which is desirable for a buyer. The only time I would recommend putting a rug down is if you needed to add warmth and personality, which most houses don't need, or if you're trying to define a space like we have here. With this being an open floor plan, we want to make sure that we have a space kind of mentally and physically carved out for the living space. And so they snagged all of this beautiful furniture together by putting a rug down.
And as a realtor, I often recommend that my clients who are listing their home for sale not use rugs because buyers tend to be suspicious. They think often if there's rugs, especially in bathrooms and kitchens, that it's covering up some defect in the floor, whether it's a stain or a broken tile and so forth. So in general, no rugs is best for staging.
Much better.
We're in a space that is right by the garage, and then we have a storage closet right here, but a potential buyer might look at this space and think that either it's wasted space or they really don't understand how they might be able to utilize it. So Heidi, how important is it to merchandise a space like this or stage it, in your opinion?
It's incredibly important. If people don't know what to do with the space, they might look at it unfavorably. But a lot of designers will come up to a space like that and think of it as nothing but potential. There's all sorts of cool and interesting things you can do with extra walls and extra cutout spaces. So this is a really good spot to put a drop zone. You could come right in from the garage and have a spot to hang your pocketbook, put your backpacks down when your kids are coming out of the car, or a key spot, because we all know that if we don't have a designated spot, everything goes on the island, and we don't want our stuff on the island because it's not pretty. So we want a designated spot. So you could put floating shelves here. You could put a mirror so you can check your teeth on the way out to a really important appointment. A really great spot to put shoes if you're a no-shoe household. There's lots of things you can do over here. But when staging, if you don't put anything here intentionally, people might be confused as to what to do here. So it's a good idea to stage it and give them a spot where they can understand how to use the space. And just because you suggested it, that's probably what they'll do when they purchase the home.
Oh, great point. One of Heidi's tips for staging a home is to depersonalize the space. And I have to say, as a realtor, this is probably my number one recommendation because buyers really need to feel like they're in their own space or they're imagining themselves living in a home. And it's very difficult to do when personal items from the current owners are everywhere. So can you share some additional insight on how to depersonalize space?
Absolutely. So, really important is to not have family photos out. If you have family photos, people might feel like they're invading your home. And when you feel like you're invading someone's home, you don't want to hang out there. And
Mm-mm.
remember, your photos are going with you. So, people need to be able to see themselves in your home, not you in your home. I think the depersonalizing even goes as far as taking down any sort of religious icons off of walls and shelves. We don't want any sports teams. Nobody likes the Broncos, so let's make sure to take any Broncos paraphernalia down. And we also want to make sure that no political signage or anything like that is out. If you offend people, they're not going to buy your home, even if it's the perfect home for them. If you look at this room in particular, we have just basically decor. I don't even know what book this is because the name of the book is facing backwards. So they just used it for the pop of color. But you know, in our beautiful state of Arizona, we love our sunsets and we love our cactus and our mountains. And so again, they just put something to give you a little bit of reference of the beautiful climate in which we live to decorate the space, but nothing personal. And when you are staging, you're appealing to a lifestyle. And the lifestyle I'm picking up from this space is that you can have kids living with you and your house can look this clean. And as a mother, I would definitely love this kind of lifestyle for a home that I'm going to be purchasing.
So, three of Heidi's top tips are really brought to life in the kitchen and how to best stage a home for sale. So, let's start with the importance of making sure that the paint is neutral. Why is that important?
It's really important because, again, you want to take any question mark out of the buyer's mind as to why they should not purchase your home. If you have dated paint colors on your walls, like a dark maroon red or something from the last trend, then people will feel like that they need to paint your house to go ahead and make it feel contemporary and updated and fresh for them. So by keeping the walls pretty neutral with what is current and ensuring that it matches the hard surfaces in the home, like your countertops and your flooring, that will really kind of make the space feel fresh and clean and updated for a potential buyer. Just because it's a trend, though, doesn't mean that's what you should be putting on your wall. It does need to work with the finishes of the home.
Nice.
Yeah.
And speaking as someone who's taken buyers on buyer tours of 6+ homes in the same day, having often my buyers are walking through a house looking for a reason not to buy it. And something as simple as having a red kitchen could be the deciding factor. So neutralizing that paint before listing a home and definitely before photos is key.
Absolutely. Sometimes people, when they're living in a space as well, like to paint particular things on their walls, like a vignette that reminds them of a nice trip that they took to France, for example. And so maybe someone has an Eiffel Tower painted on the wall and a really beautiful kitchen scene with beignets and like you're sitting in a cafe. Well, just because you love it doesn't mean the next buyer will love it. And to them, that looks like dollar signs. And that gives them a reason to not want to purchase it. So spend a couple hundred or a couple $1,000s, whatever it's going to take to get your paint the correct way and consistent throughout the home, and go ahead and paint over your little cafe bistro scene. Another thing I wanted to say is we were talking about flooring and about how the space looks larger based on what we're doing with the rugs. It's the same thing with paint. If we have a purple wall over here and a yellow wall over here, it is visually going to chop up the space. So we want to make sure to have the color be the same and your eye just keeps moving through the space and makes it look nice and large and spacious, which is what buyers are wanting.
Okay. So you were mentioning the cost of simple fixes. And so that kind of makes me think about your next tip, which is the updating fixtures in the home. So tell us more about that.
Absolutely. So again, people, when they purchase a home, they want to walk right in and they want a turnkey ready house. So some of the least expensive things you can do is to go ahead and replace a dated faucet with a brand new one. I mean, who doesn't love the detailing on this? It makes you feel like you're a professional chef, right? And updating your lighting. If you had dated pendant lights or can lights, it might be a nice update to go ahead and pull those down and replace them with brand new pendant lights. And it just kind of gives the space a little bit more personality. Remember, when staging a home, they can remember it for negative reasons oh, that was
Mm.
that the house with the really ugly kitchen? Or they can say, was that the house with the really, really cool stainless steel single bowl kitchen sink, like in this Meritage house? To me, this would be a very desirable feature looking
Mhm.
for a home for a potential client.
Right. And relatively, kitchen fixtures and light fixtures, they're
Yes.
inexpensive. But would you agree if I said that buyers often walk through a home and they're ticking in their head much higher amounts to fix something than it would actually cost to fix it?
Absolutely. And those dollars can add up to two things. Number one, competition on a house potentially.
Mm.
If you have your house for sale and your neighbor does as well, and your house is more fixed up, yours is more desirable. And sometimes people will compete because it's not the extra work that they're going to have to do when they purchase your home.
Right.
So if you already have an upgraded faucet, upgraded light fixtures, or you did go the extra mile to upgrade counters or anything like that, that small little bit of detail that you have added to your home makes it more desirable and could add extra dollars on the closing table.
Nice. And so you talked about countertops also. So what's important about displaying your home when it comes to hard surfaces like this?
So when people purchase a kitchen, nobody looks at a kitchen and says, oh, there's very little storage in there. That's the house for me. We want lots of cabinets and lots of space to put all of our devices. Here in America, we love our coffee machines, we
Mm-hmm.
love our air fryers, we have all of the things. So we need plenty of storage, including cooking. So maybe the person who's going to be looking at your house loves to make pies and they want plenty of space to have a baking section in their house.
Mm-hmm.
So when we are staging a home, we want to make sure that we have miles and miles of countertop available for people to see when they're looking at it. Again, by strategic placement of putting things on the countertops, you can see we have 4 place settings here. If there was nothing here when this house was being photographed, you have 0 visual reference for how large this is. But because we were able to fit 4 bar stools here and 4 place settings, you now know that this is a pretty large island, which is definitely something somebody would want when they're looking at this home. I do like how they have very little items on the counter, and it lets you know that you've got plenty of space to put your things.
Great. So what you're saying is like these place settings actually serve to give scale, but you've mentioned on several occasions that the photographs of the house are actually the most important because that gets people into the home to
Absolutely.
look at it. And without something like these place settings to give scale, someone looking at photos online may not have an idea of how many bar stools or how many people could actually sit at the island.
Correct. It's actually more detrimental to your photos to have 0 bar stools or to only have 2. Sometimes people say, I took off a couple just to make it look larger. It has the opposite effect.
Okay, excellent, excellent tips.
One thing I'm always telling people when they're staging a house is if you have decorative items on top of your cabinets, those need to all come off. The reason being, to me, nobody needs to see your Mima's chicken collection up on top of the cabinets. It definitely dates it. And also, if people are looking at your decor, they're not looking at the home. Mima's chickens are coming with you and they're not staying with the house, whether they want them or not. So if we want to make this look nice and spacious, we want to make sure that we don't have dusty items up on top of this. Take it down and people will notice the tall ceilings.
Heidi, sometimes I have clients ask me when they're thinking about staging their home for sale if they should just keep to solid colors, especially in bedrooms where bedding tends to have a lot of patterns. What would you say to that?
Well, I definitely am a fan of simplifying, but to an extent. So, a lot of times, if you have very busy patterns like this bedding here, it can look super dizzying and where's Waldo if we have pattern everywhere. Again, like we were talking about before, maybe the eye doesn't know where to look and it kind of travels through the space too quickly. I think this is an excellent example of how the staging was done well in this room. We have a lot of pattern here on the bedding, and we have texture and pattern here on the pendants. And then even our drapes have pattern and texture on it. But what's done well is the walls are very clean and crisp and don't have a lot of competing and conflicting texture and pattern on them. So it does keep the focal point of what we are pointing at here on this bed, which is the bedding. The thing I always like for people on their bed is to remember that white photographs very well, and it
Mm.
does make a space feel fresh and clean. So I'm not a fan of old dated bedding. That's usually a really good idea to invest in fresh white bedding, nice fluffy pillows. You want to kind of make it look like a bedding advertisement because it feels very inviting. And again, we're speaking to a lifestyle that most people want, which is where we all think that we're going to have a nice lazy weekend and really enjoy sleeping in. And so a bed is a really important focal point of the bedroom.
Nice. And I think one thing that, and we've talked about this before, this model does a great job of unifying the entire room with color,
Yeah,
or the
absolutely.
entire building actually with color. And the use of the color and how it flows in the room encourages the potential buyer to explore every piece of this room, maybe even go over and look out the window. So I agree with you. I think plain colors in this room might have been a little bit boring.
Absolutely, absolutely. If the walls were white and they had an all white bedding and kept everything very classic, it would not have the spice that it has right now. It would not feel as warm and inviting and as comfortable as it does. But because of the addition of texture and color here, it really makes it nice. But they kept it simple by keeping the walls plain.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Heidi. I'm so excited with all of the information that you've shared with our audience. If you enjoyed this material, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and we'll make sure that you get more of it. We'll also have Heidi's information in the show details so that you can contact her for her designer brilliance.
Thank you for having me.
My
It
pleasure.
was really fun.
It was fun.